Welcome, friends, to another program on functional English. Thank you for writing to us and assuring us that you have found our programs extremely useful. How would you explain the game of cricket in absolutely simple English to somebody who doesn't know the game? Well, this is how a native speaker of English described cricket. You have two sides, one out in the field and one in. Each man that's in the side that's in goes out, and when he's out, he comes in, and the next man goes in until he's out. When they are all out, the side that's out comes in, and the side that's been in goes out and tries to get those coming in out. Sometimes you get men still in and not out. When both sides have been in and out, including the not outs, that's the end of the game. How's that? Well, Archana and Arati have just returned from Mumbai, and they're talking about their visit to their friend Ashwini.
It's so dirty.
And you should have seen the crowd in the railway station. We lost each other in the crowd.
Ashwini, you have lived in Mumbai for over 18 years, haven't you? How did you manage to retain your sanity?
Believe me, I enjoyed every moment of my life there.
And what about Hyderabad? You live in the best of our localities, at Banjara Hills.
I do like Hyderabad, but Bombay has been my hometown. My first love. You can fall in love with that place.
What? Fall in love with that mechanical and overcrowded city? You must be crazy to say that. It was good for a holiday. But live there? Excuse me?
Ashwini, why do you like Mumbai so much?
The fact that it is bubbling with life, the people are so helpful, and the traffic there, very disciplined.
The only thing that I noticed about the traffic was that it was terrible. Vehicles crawling at the pace of 20 kilometers per hour, and the dust and the dirt.
Yes, it's inevitable, but you didn't take the taxis all the time. It would have been better if you had taken the public transport like the trains or the buses. You don't have to wait for more than 10 minutes at any railway station or bus stop. And the buses are not like the ones here.
Oh yes, I observed that. People board the bus from the rear end and get off from the front end. It makes travelling so much easier.
And the fact that the pedestrians use the zebra crossing to walk across the road, and that they walk on the footpath rather than along the footpath. But Ashwini, tell me, how come the people there are so disciplined?
It is very simple. The population in Bombay is large and the city is small. If you have to live and work there, you have to be, or rather are forced to be disciplined. Imagine the chaos if discipline wasn't the order of the day.
Yes, you're right. It would be maddening. But you must accept the fact that the railway stations there are one mad place. You try hard to get into the train, and once you're in, you start wondering how you managed to get in. Getting out of it is another ordeal.
Yes, to many, it is as good as an ordeal. You need to get used to it. Believe me, trains are a boon to the city of Bombay. Let me tell you this. For the first time in the history of Bombay, there was a massive power cut of over 10 hours. People had to get to their homes, buses were full, and roads were crowded with private cars and taxis. People who decided to walk home occupied the footpaths. It was also raining, so many people had to huddle in shops.
What? Walk home? They must be crazy.
But they had no choice. If you call this crazy, listen to what happened next. Some people walked on the vehicles.
What? This must be a joke. How did they manage to do that?
Well, I told you, there was no place on the road or on the footpath, so it had to be on the vehicles. It was a college crowd that did it. They were fast and agile. They could also balance well. Believe me, they reached home before the office crowd did.
That must have been such a funny sight to see.
Yes, we find it funny now, but at that time, people were desperate to get home.
How did you get home, Ashwini? It must have been a nightmare for all of you.
Don't tell me you two walked over the vehicles.
Yes, I did. I too walked in vehicles. I don't know how I did it then. I guess it was out of sheer desperation. I followed the person in front of me, and those behind me did the same. I walked for about 5 hours. I reached home at 10 p.m. and my father at 2 a.m.
It must have been very difficult for everyone.
Yes, it was. Mainly because we hadn't experienced a power cut of that kind in the past.
Power cuts? Ask us. We experience it every summer. Since 1990, we have had regular power cuts in the state.
Do you know Chennai has an internal railway system as well? I wonder if it is as efficient as the one in Bombay.
Oh yes, it is. But it doesn't have to fight a population like the one in Mumbai. So one doesn't feel the strain.
Yes, but let's not get into a discussion on population. I think it's time we go, Aarti.
Okay.
See you all.
Bye.
See you.
Bye. Archana, Aarti, come again.
Yeah, sure.
Well friends, today we are going to look at prepositions. They are a bit confusing, aren't they? Well, let's try and understand them today then. Prepositions are a class of words that unite different units in a sentence. Let's look at these two sentences. Sheila kept the books on the table. Arun is talking to the man in blue jeans. In these two sentences, the words on, to, and in are prepositions that bring together units in a sentence and thereby specify the relationship between them. The relationship could be in terms of space, time, and so on. Today, we are going to look at the prepositions that indicate space and time. Let's look at the prepositions that indicate space at first. The kind of prepositions that we use to indicate space depends on the way we perceive the place to be. Now that sounds a little confusing. Let me explain. Now we can perceive a place as a point, as a line or area, or as an enclosed area or volume. An enclosed area meaning enclosed area with boundaries. Now, if we are talking about perceiving a place as a point of reference, we use the preposition at, to, from, and away from. Listen to the following examples.
You live in the best of all localities, at Banjara Hills.
You don't have to wait for more than 10 minutes at any railway station or bus stop. There are trains and buses that will take you from one point to another.
Here are a few more examples. Mr. Singh lives at Connaught Place in New Delhi. Every day he travels from Connaught Place to Saket. Because of the distance, one day he decided to move away from Connaught Place. In this example, we see that Mr. Singh lives at a point of reference, that is Connaught Place, and therefore we use the preposition at. Every day he travels from a point of reference to another point of reference, and therefore we use the prepositions from, to, and away from. That is about prepositions that indicate a point of reference. When we perceive the space as a line or as an area, we use the preposition on, across, along, beside, and sometimes even through. Listen to the following examples.
And the fact that the pedestrians use the zebra crossing to walk across the road, and that they walk on the footpath rather than along the footpath.
When we look at a movement as being in a straight line, we use the preposition along. When we look at a movement from one side of the road to the other, we use the preposition across. Now here are a few more examples. The label is on the bottle. Mr. and Mrs. Singh are walking along the seashore. The farmers walked across the fields. Now these were examples used to indicate the prepositions that talk about space in terms of line or surface area. Let's look at prepositions that indicate an enclosed area or volume. The prepositions used are in, into, out of and through.
It would be maddening. But you must accept the fact that the railway stations there are one mad place. You try hard to get into the train, and once you are in, you start wondering how you managed to get in. Getting out of it is another ordeal.
Here are a few more examples that will talk about prepositions that indicate the venue as an enclosed area with boundaries. The children rushed into the playground. After the show, the people moved out of the theatre. They walked through the woods. In the above examples, the prepositions into, out of and through talk about the area, that is the playground, the theatre and the woods as an enclosed area with boundaries. Now apart from these prepositions, there are many others like above, over, under, below, between, amongst, in front of and behind that indicate space. Above and over are used to indicate or talk about higher than, as in,
Don't tell me you two walked over the vehicles.
Yes, I did.
under and below means lower than, as in, the paper is lying under the table. Here, there is no contact between the paper and the table. Mr. Singh hid the keys under the pillow. In this case, there is a definite contact between the keys and the pillow. The preposition between is used to relate something or someone with two things or persons, while the preposition amongst is used to relate more than two things or persons. Listen to the following examples which will clarify what I said. Archana is sitting between Deepa and Radha. Archana is sitting amongst her friends. In front of and behind are relative positions.
I followed the person in front of me and those behind me did the same.
Similarly, if Archana is sitting in front of Mrs. Singh is sitting behind Archana. Now these were prepositions that indicate space. As I said earlier, we also have prepositions that indicate time. Since and for are two such prepositions that we need to focus our attention on. Remember, we use the preposition since when we talk about time as a point of time, whereas the preposition for is used when we talk about time in terms of duration.
Since 1990, we have had regular power cuts in the state. Ashwini, you have lived in Mumbai for over 18 years, haven't you?
Well, these are only a few prepositions to talk about. There are a few more. Friends, our objective in these programs on functional English has been to help you carry out your conversations with your friends and colleagues in as effective a manner as possible. We hope we have been successful in doing so. Do write to us and give us your suggestions. Remember, your suggestions will only help us give you better programs. Goodbye for now.
A few more points about prepositions in general. Firstly, we can use some prepositions before an adverb. For example, we can say, until tomorrow or through there. We can also use some prepositions before a gerund like moving. For example, we can say, Harish is thinking of moving house. Secondly, we cannot use a preposition before a that clause. In other words, we can't say, we are hoping for that we'll win. We can only say, we are hoping that we'll win, or we are hoping for a win. Lastly, in some clauses, the preposition goes at the very end. Examples: war reporters often get shot at. Or, that's the program on prepositions I've been talking to you about.